Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zheng here, and today I am bringing you a team analysis on the team that I brought to the US VGC National Championships last weekend, where I was able to finish in 4th place. It's a Sand team. Of course, this is the Sand team that we featured on Road to Rank in the past week. It's a variant of the Sand team that we used way earlier on Road to Rank, and it's also a variant of the team that I finished 9th with at Massachusetts Regionals. I originally was going to make this analysis after Regionals, but then I figured I wanted to, edit the team slightly, and I didn't want to reveal too much of my strategy yet, since I was going to use this at Nationals. But now that Nationals is over, I'm ready to show you guys all the tips and tricks of the team. So I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis, and if you do and want to see more, please show your support by leaving a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, let's get into it. So first of all, I kind of want to talk about my mentality going into Nationals, because that definitely affected my team choice. US Nationals this year was entirely best of 3, so you played 9 Swiss rounds on the first day, and if you won 7 or more of them, you would advance to the second day, where you would play 6 more Swiss rounds, and then if you were in the top 8 there, you'd move on to the top 8. So with all best of 3, I didn't worry as much about gimmicky teams and strategies, because I felt like I could adapt accordingly. I also felt like I could run a bit more, less accurate moves like Draco Meteor and Stone Edge. My main goal for Nationals was to just finish in the top 16 or 32. Going into US Nationals, I was ranked 6th in championship points in North America, and I just needed to stay in the top 8 to automatically skip the first day of the World Championships and get invited immediately to the second day and win a free trip to Worlds. So that was my main goal. Unlike other players who needed to have a more higher finish, I just needed top 16 or 32. And with this format, it was definitely doable, because I knew it was all best of 3, and I could also afford to lose a couple of best of 3 sets. So, I did forego some important matchups, and that's why you'll see later that I was weak to a bunch of things that were actually really popular at Nationals, but I knew I could take a couple of losses here and there. So the most important thing for me was having a consistent team that I was comfortable with. I think when you're playing so many games of Pokemon, especially US Nationals, in which that was the tournament I've played the most games of Pokemon in, I definitely wanted a team that I knew how to play with completely. I wanted to be really comfortable with it and basically just understand the team completely. I also wanted a team that could counter all the top Mega Evolutions, since I was most scared of those Pokemon. So Pokemon like Salamence, Charizard, Kangaskhan, and Gardevoir, which I identified as the biggest threats in terms of Mega Evolutions going into Nationals. And so I originally really liked the core of Mega Salamence, ROTOM-WASH, Aegislash, and Amoonguss after using the Japanese Sand team, which I'll go into later, at Massachusetts Regional. So I basically wanted to build around that, testing a bunch of different things. As I mentioned, the Japanese Sand team was a team that performed very well in the Japan Cup, which was the Japanese qualifier for Nationals over there, and originally had Tyranitar, Excadrill, Mega Salamence, Azumarill, Aegislash, and Amoonguss. So the Azumarill there and the Excadrill, a bit different. I didn't end up bringing either of those to Nationals, but I did have a variant of that team in Massachusetts Regionals, where I finished 9th. That team basically had very similar Pokemon to this, but a bunch of different movesets, most notably Excadrill instead of the Landorus Incarnate form, which I brought to Nationals, and then special Mega Salamence. So at Massachusetts Regionals, I started off 6-0, and then I unfortunately dropped the last 2 rounds. And my resistance was solid, but not solid enough, so I bubbled out at 9th place, and that was definitely a bummer. But I felt like my 2 losses against Ashton, Cox, and Wolfie Glick were really, to me, not playing nearly as well as I should have been playing, and to a couple of small weaknesses that I noticed with the team. So I figured if I could patch the weaknesses going into Nationals, it would still be a really good call. So the main issues I pinpointed from Regionals, that I used to edit the team were: 1, not enough physical power, because it relied on Tyranitar and Excadrill, and those are pretty similar Pokemon in terms of their attacks. I thought Excadrill really wasn't pulling its weight either. It was just too easy to shut down, especially with Intimidate. And then I thought Scarf Tyranitar being weak to Intimidate was also kind of an issue, as I didn't run any special type attacks. So one of the main changes I made was actually immediately switching my Mega Salamence from fully special with Hyper Voice, Flamethrower, and Dragon Pulse to a mixed variant. I got rid of Dragon Pulse for Draco Meteor because I was missing knockouts on Pokemon like Hydreigon and opposing Mega Salamence occasionally, and I was willing to deal with a 10% mischance if I could guarantee a knockout. And I also included Double Edge here, because even though Hyper Voice was really good, Double Edge actually still picks up knockouts on Pokemon like Mega Gardevoir and Ludicolo, even with little attack investment. And both of those Pokemon were giving me a lot of trouble, so that change definitely helped me out a lot, and I caught a lot of opponents off guard too, since I'm sure they were just expecting normal special Mega Salamence. Excadrill was basically the main change that I wanted to make, though I really didn't like it, so I tried out so many different Pokemon. In the week leading up to Nationals, which was basically the only week I had time to practice and test, tried out Pokemon like Moringa, Milotic, Gastrodon, Blaziken, and Sylveon, but ultimately I decided on Landorus Incarnate last second. At that point I was like, you know what, I'm comfortable enough playing with with 5 of my 6 Pokemon, I'll just throw on a 6th one that I hope can work out, and Landorus I really came through, so it was a fantastic change. And so that's basically the mentality of the team and how I went about thinking of it, and I'll actually show you the team and the Pokemon and, you know, all the nitty gritty. So the first one is Mega Salamence. I opted for a naive nature, max speed, because I think max speed is incredibly important. I didn't want to risk losing against any opposing Mega Salamence, and this gave me at least a 50% chance of beating them immediately. So I opted for naive nature because just with 44 attack EVs and with double edge, you can knock out max HP Gardevoir with 4 defense investment, which is really nice. You can also knock out Ludicolo even if it's really bulky, even if Mega Salamence is intimidated. So 44 attack was enough to accomplish the knockouts that I really needed, and then I wanted the rest in special attack since Hyper Voice is still such a strong attack, and Draco Meteor also very good. Ultimately, Mega Salamence a fantastic call, and I really enjoyed it. Probably my favorite Mega Evolution to use this year. Sorry, Venusaur. The next one is Choice Scarf Tyranitar, and this one's pretty standard. Now, I didn't have enough time to actually test one with special attack EVs and a different nature, so I just opted for 4 HP, 252 attack, 252 speed with the Jolly nature. Rock Slide, you know, that's obviously a common move. You do notice that I have Assurance here, and a lot of players ask, you know, why Assurance over something like Crunch or even Dark Pulse? Main reason is because, of course, if you pair it up with Mega Salamence is faster after you Mega Evolve, so you could get some cool combinations with Hyper Voice and Assurance. Another reason is Tyranitar was often a common target to Thunder Wave. You know, a lot of Thunderuses like to Thunder Wave, so it allowed me to slow it down, and then Assurance would be able to get max damage off against anything. Ultimately, I didn't have any real regrets. I guess Dark Pulse wouldn't have been the worst call either, but then I probably would have changed the nature of this Tyranitar as well. So that does explain the Assurance call. I opted for Ice Beam over Ice Punch because Tyranitar was almost always getting intimidated, and Ice Beam would at least give me a shot at one-hit KOing Salamence and Landorus, both which obviously are Intimidators, whereas Ice Punch after Intimidate would never get a knockout. So even with the Jolly nature and no special attack investment, it would also often do a ton of damage. Some of you guys may remember in my game against Paul Chua, I predicted him to bring in Salamence, and Ice Beam was able to pick up the knockout after sand damage. So it was a really helpful change, and even though I used it once to pick up a knockout, it really was an important KO there. And then for the last one, I went for Superpower. I didn't like Low Kick as much because against Pokemon that don't have very much weight like Rotom-WASH, you can't do too much, but Superpower still does pretty decent damage there. So really helps out against opposing Tyranitar, Kangaskhan, and anything weak to fighting really. Next Pokemon was one that a lot of you guys I'm sure are interested in, and this is Landorus Incarnate form. This one was basically the same one that Angel Miranda actually used to finish in the top 4 at Georgia Regionals. And originally, when I was testing the slot for this Landorus, I wanted something that could beat Heatran and Aegislash, since both of those Pokemon were giving me a lot of trouble, but I also didn't want a physical type attacker, so Landorus only really made sense to me. I looked at other Pokemon that could take advantage of Sand, and Landorus was really the only one viable. Stoutland would have been pretty cool, but it didn't really do anything that I wanted to accomplish with this team. So I opted for one with Sand Force, obviously, because the other ability isn't allowed through hidden abilities right now. And I opted just for the most simple spread. Max speed is incredibly important on this Landorus because you can outspeed Charizard and other base 100 Pokemon like Kangaskhan. 252 special attack and just 4 HP. Because I ran Hidden Power Ice, I do need the 30 in attack and defense, and I opted for a moveset of Earth Power, Stone Edge, Hidden Power Ice, and Protect. It's kind of funny to note in testing, I just want to let you guys know what I was considering. I was actually using safety goggles on this Landorus originally because Amoonguss plus something that was a threat was giving me some issues. I was also considering Sludge Bomb, but I figured this moveset was too important because it counters all the big Pokemon and threats in the format. Earth Power for Heatran and Aegislash, Stone Edge for Charizard, Hidden Power Ice for opposing Landorus, and Protect from attacks. I didn't really have an item, so Expert Belt really allowed me to pick up knockouts even if they had, bulk in it, and that was really nice. Ultimately, I was able to get a lot of nice knockouts against Pokemon like Charizard and Landorus T. So this Landorus, really a threat to be reckoned with. The next Pokemon was Aegislash, and Life Orb Aegislash was something that I've been using for a while. I actually tested it on my Mega Venusaur team, getting rid of Bisharp earlier on, just because I felt like Bisharp was way too frail. And Aegislash, really one of the top Pokemon in the format this year, was a huge threat at US Nationals. I opted for almost, max HP and max special attack, but 20 speed. In retrospect, I probably should have invested more in speed, because one issue that this team had was opposing Aegislash that were faster and ran substitutes. So you'd imagine if I had more speed, I could always, just outspeed my opponent's Aegislash and force them to not even get a substitute up, because Life Orb plus Shadow Ball does around like 80% plus. And so I just opted for a simple set of Flash Cannon, Shadow Ball, Wide Guard, and King Shield. I thought Wide Guard here was really important just to prevent myself from getting hit by attacks like Icy Wind and Rock Slide and Heat Wave, and definitely came in handy multiple times throughout the weekend. Pretty self-explanatory Aegislash set. The next one was Amoonguss, and this is basically a standard Amoonguss. I opted for basically almost max HP and defense because I wanted to shut down physical type attackers like Kangaskhan and Landorus as much as possible. This allows me to actually take a Jolly Zen Headbutt from Mega Metagross and survive 100% of the time, which is really nice. And then I just put the rest in special defense. Opted for Relaxed Nature with 0 speed Ivy just because, wanted to, in case I faced a Trick Room team, be able to outspeed everything on my opponent's team and just spore everything. That definitely, gave me some more insurance against the Trick Room teams. And then a typical moveset of Spore, Rage Powder, Giga Drain, and Protect. I was considering Sludge Bomb at points, but I felt like Giga Drain was too important, especially against bulky water types, which were already kind of a threat to my team. And then there's the Rotom-WASH. ROTOM-WASH is a Pokemon that I've been using in VGC since 2013, and even though it's kind of infamous, I still absolutely love it. So you'll see that I run a lot of speed on this one, and that's because I wanted to outspeed Bisharp for sure. A lot of the times I would actually lead Salamence Rotom against Bisharp, and obviously that's kind of risky because Will-O-Wisp's accuracy is only 85 there, but at the same time it would allow me to, give me another way to beat Bisharp, which could kind of be an issue, especially against Aegislash and Amoonguss, which, I wasn't too fond of, and against Tyranitar if I wasn't locked into superpower. So the speed investment there definitely helped me out, especially against Rotom mirror matches. With the HP and the special defense, I'm still surviving solar beams from Charizard 100% of the time. I didn't really need special attack investment nor defense investment since I had Amoonguss and Salamence for the defensive end with Intimidate and Rage Powder, and then special attack, I'm not picking up knockouts with more investment anyway. So really great EV spread here, and I enjoyed having that extra speed a lot. So, that's basically it for the Pokemon. As for how you play with the team, there's no right way to play with these 6 Pokemon. Unlike other teams that I've built, especially my VGC 2013 Worlds team, which I got 3rd with, that team liked to lead with, for example, Cresselia Rotom like 99% of the time. This team, you could literally lead with any 2 combination of the Pokemon, and it could always work out. It really just completely depends on your opponent's team. There were so many different ways to lead with. But my main preference is actually leading with Salamence and pairing it with something, unless my opponent had mainly special attackers or something like my Milotic, which obviously Salamence doesn't do too well against. Main reason why I like leading with Salamence is because it gets the Intimidate off and puts on a lot of pressure after you can just Mega Evolve and Protect, and then you'll be basically the fastest Pokemon on the field, unless they have a Choice Scarf user. So I like putting on a lot of pressure with Mega Salamence immediately. I also want to note that Landorus Incarnate definitely doesn't need to be paired up with Tyranitar. I feel like that's a misconception a lot of players have with Landorus side, but the thing is, even if you're outside of Sand, Earth Power, Stone Edge, and Hidden Power, I still pick up their respective knockouts that they need to. I never really needed the Sand there just because it was already a strong enough Pokemon, so don't be misled, and don't feel bad if you're bringing Landorus without the Tyranitar, because I definitely did that at multiple points. I also want to just point out the role of Amoonguss because it's a bit more defensive. It was a really fantastic choice against Pokemon, that relied on single type attacks or single target attacks because you could redirect everything away with Rage Powder. And it was also really, really helpful against physical teams, especially Pokemon like Mega Kangaskhan and Landorus, which, first of all that Rocky Helmet damage, I can intimidate them with my Salamence's Intimidate and then redirecting things away and getting spores off. So Amoonguss, you do have to forego an offensive member in order to bring it, but if you choose the right games and bring it correctly, it really, really pulls its weight. So that's basically how I played with the team in terms of, lead options and just a couple of notes I wanted to make about other Pokemon on the team. So this team definitely had notable weaknesses too, and I did run into all these different weaknesses at Nationals, and it gave me a lot of trouble. Mega Gardevoir teams that were supported properly, huge problem. I did lose O2 to Toller Web in the top 4, and he had one of the best teams really that could have countered me. He also played fantastically, but he had basically the 2 things I was most scared of going up against, and that was Mega Gardevoir and then a really fast Aegislash. His Aegislash being faster than mine, especially with Substitute, gave me so many issues. In my Swiss loss in day 2 against Angel Miranda, he also had a faster Aegislash, and Aegislash mirror matches are always terrible, but if you're on the slower end, they can just outspeed you and knock you out after some chip damage. So both of those Pokemon really gave me issue. Thundurus can also cause some issues. Rock Slide obviously is just a 2-hit KO, but they can Thunder Wave multiple things and Hidden Power Ice. So Thundurus, a lot of the times if we're on the field, would often get 1 if not 2 Thunder Waves off, and my team kind of relies on not getting slowed down, so that could cause some issues. Blaziken was also kind of a big threat if unchecked, because it could 1-hit KO 5 of my 6 Pokemon, so it led to a bunch of 50-50s. I did only play 1 Blaziken in day 2 of Swiss, but it was definitely problematic and scary to go up against. Fortunately, it didn't do too much damage, but in testing, I knew Blaziken caused me a lot of issues. Ferrothorn was also a Pokemon I was really scared of, and ironically enough, my opponent had both Blaziken and Ferrothorn. You know, just ability to leech seed a lot of different things can cause a lot of issues if you don't double target it down immediately, and if it gets 2 leech seeds off, it's healing back so much every turn. So you know, I definitely wanted to check it, especially without a fire type attack on my team. Bulky water types, not fun to play against. Milotic, you know, Wolfie Glick's Milotic gave me a lot of issue. I had to play very carefully around it. Gastrodon, which my round 9 opponent in day 1 of Swiss, Alex Underhill, used. If I didn't bring Amoonguss, I had no way to really hit it for much damage. And then ROTOM-WASH, always an issue, especially if I don't bring Amoonguss. Ice type attacks, as you imagine, were also pretty strong against me, especially since I had Landorus, Salamence, and Amoonguss, all which are weak to ice type. And then just playing too aggressively and losing important Pokemon. For some of you guys who may have tuned into the Pokemon stream, for example, against Angel Miranda in our first time that we played, I was up considerably, and then I just lost my Aegislash because I assumed that, you know, I was faster than him, and I thought I could maybe, you know, survive a Shadow Ball even if I wasn't, but that just wasn't the case, and that was a huge error on my end. So, you know, this team is really good, but if you lose a Pokemon too quickly, you can lose a lot of momentum, and then suddenly you'll realize, wow, I needed that Pokemon for other Pokemon that my opponent had on the team, and now without it, winning the game will be really difficult. So playing too carelessly and aggressively often cost me a lot of, you know, close games. So that's basically it for the team and everything I wanted to tell you guys. In conclusion, it was one of my favorite teams, if not my favorite team to use in the VGC 2015 season. I definitely had some notable weaknesses, but in a tournament like US Nationals where I knew I could afford up to 2 losses both days, I was definitely willing to deal with the losses, and smart playing can get you out of it a lot of the times. For example, against Angel, I was able to beat him once again in top 8, and Toller, you know, Toller definitely gave me a lot of trouble with this team, and he was a fantastic player to boot. And looking back though, there were a lot of plays I could have made as well. So despite it having weaknesses, I definitely feel like if I played a bit better in my losses, I could have taken those. So my overall record at Nationals, to summarize, I went 8-1 in day 1 in sets, 16-5 in games in total. Day 2, a lot tougher against much more quality opponents, 5-3 in sets, 12-9 in games. Overall, for a finish of 13-4 in sets, 28-14 in games. Out of those 4 losses that I had in sets, 2 of them I was able to bring to a game 3. The other 2 I lost 0-2. So, you know, those 2 sets that I lost 0-2 definitely major team issues in terms of weaknesses, and then my opponent also just outplayed me consistently. So, you know, not a perfect team for sure, but did what it needed to get me a 4th place finish at US Nationals, thus locking up my day 2 invite at Worlds, which I'm really excited about. So, yeah, that's basically everything I wanted to tell you guys about this team. I hope you find it useful. That's basically all the information that you need to know. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comments below. And please also leave a like if you enjoyed it and you found this helpful in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, that's going to be it for this analysis, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.